the 15th centuries, remain one of the most significant and complex chapters in history. The First Crusade, which began in 1096, marked the beginning of a series of violent and transformative conflicts between two worlds, Christian Europe and the Islamic world. But what were the origins of the Crusades, and what prompted the call to arms that led to centuries of religious warfare? Chapter 1. The context of religious and political tension. The roots of the Crusades stretch back centuries, growing from both religious fervor and the political landscape of Europe and the Middle East. By the 11th century, Europe had experienced several significant changes that made the Crusades not just a possibility but a reality. Religious context. The rise of Christianity and Islam. Christianity in Europe. By the 11th century, Christianity had firmly established itself as the dominant religion of Europe. The papal authority, centered in Rome, played a central role in religious and political matters. The Pope, as the spiritual leader of Christendom, held significant influence over Christian monarchs and their subjects. Islam's growth. The rise of Islam, founded in the 7th century by the Prophet Muhammad, led to the rapid expansion of Muslim territories across the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Europe. The capture of Jerusalem in 638 CE by Muslim forces under Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab had been a critical moment in the religious and political struggle for control over the Holy Land, a territory sacred to both Christians and Muslims. The Holy Land, Jerusalem's significance. Sacred to all. For Christians, Jerusalem was the site of Jesus Christ's crucifixion, death, and resurrection, making it the most sacred city in Christendom. For Muslims, it was the site of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, where the Prophet Muhammad is said to have ascended to heaven. Jews also considered Jerusalem to be their historic and religious center. The challenge of control. By the 11th century, Jerusalem had come under the control of the Fatimid Caliphate, and the Seljuk Turks, Muslims from Central Asia, began to encroach on territories previously held by other Muslim dynasties. The political instability of the region, especially with the rising influence of the Seljuk Turks, made Jerusalem a hotly contested city. Chapter 2. The Byzantine Empire and the Call for Help. As the Seljuk Turks expanded their power, they began to threaten the Christian Byzantine Empire, which had long been a protector of the Eastern Orthodox Christian faith. By the late 11th century, the Byzantine Empire was weakening under internal and external pressures, and the Turks were making significant territorial gains. The Byzantine crisis and Emperor Alexios I. The Battle of Manzikert, 1071, one of the key events leading up to the Crusades was the Battle of Manzikert in 1071, where the Byzantine army, under Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes, was decisively defeated by the Seljuk Turks. This battle not only weakened the Byzantine Empire but also led to the loss of much of Anatolia, a vital region for the Byzantines. Emperor Alexios I's appeal. With the empire in peril, Emperor Alexios I Komnenos of Byzantium turned to the west for help. In 1095, he sent an ambassador to Pope Urban II in Rome, requesting military aid to defend against the growing Turkish threat and to recover lost territories in Asia Minor. Chapter 3. Pope Urban II's Call for the First Crusade. Pope Urban II, who had recently ascended to the papacy, seized upon the opportunity to unite the Christian world in a common cause. The appeal for help from the Byzantine emperor came at a time when the Catholic Church sought to assert its dominance over rival Christian factions, including the Eastern Orthodox Church, which had been split from Rome for centuries. Urban's call for the First Crusade was as much about political strategy as it was about religious zeal. Pope Urban II's speech at Clermont, 1095, a holy war. In November 1095, Pope Urban II delivered a rousing speech at the Council of Clermont in southern France. The Pope called on Christian knights and nobles to take up arms and march to the Holy Land to aid the Byzantines and liberate Jerusalem from Muslim control. The promise of spiritual rewards. Urban promised spiritual rewards, including the remission of sins, for those who participated in the crusade. This appeal for divine favor, coupled with the lure of land, wealth, and adventure, stirred the hearts of many, especially among the knights and noblemen of Europe. Religious zeal and the call to liberate Jerusalem. Urban framed the crusade as a religious duty to protect Christianity and reclaim the Holy City. This call for liberation and the protection of Christian pilgrims and sacred sites struck a chord with a Europe increasingly focused on religious devotion and military expansion. Chapter 4. The Social and Economic Motivations. While religious zeal was a driving force, there were also significant social, economic, and political motivations for joining the crusade. The medieval world was a highly stratified society, and the Crusades offered a unique opportunity for individuals to advance their status, acquire wealth, and secure land. The feudal system and land opportunities. Land and glory. For many knights and nobles, the Crusades represented a chance to gain land and wealth in the East. Landless younger sons of nobility, in particular, saw the Crusades as an opportunity to acquire estates, titles, and the glory of military conquest. Pillage and spoils of war. The promise of plunder also attracted many to the crusade. The idea of conquering a wealthy city like Jerusalem, rich in treasures, offered an enticing prospect for many. Religious and social cohesion. Papal authority and unity. For Pope Urban II, the crusade was also an opportunity to strengthen the authority of the Catholic Church over Christian Europe. By uniting the Christian world under the banner of a holy war, Urban hoped to heal the divisions within Christendom, particularly the rift between the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches. Social order and leadership. The Crusades provided an outlet for the violent and restless energies of European knights and noblemen, many of whom were eager for military adventure and a chance to prove their valor. Chapter 5. The First Crusade, From Call to Action. The response to Urban II's call was overwhelming. Thousands of knights, soldiers, and even peasants joined the crusade, marking the beginning of the First Crusade in 1096. The Crusaders were divided into several armies and began their long journey to the Holy Land. Chapter 6. The Crusades expand, successes, failures, and new frontiers. The First Crusade was just the beginning of a series of religiously motivated campaigns that would stretch across the centuries. While the Crusaders' victory in Jerusalem in 1099 marked the high point of the First Crusade, the subsequent Crusades would involve further expansion, and many ultimately ended in failure, shaping the geopolitical landscape of Europe and the Near East for centuries. The establishment of Crusader states. After the capture of Jerusalem, the Crusaders established a number of states in the Levant, known as the Crusader states. These included the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the County of Tripoli, the Principality of Antioch, and the County of Edessa. These territories were seen as the fruits of the Crusader conquest but were difficult to maintain due to the constant threat of Muslim retaliation. Christian rule in the Holy Land. For nearly a century, these states were ruled by European nobility, and they became strongholds of Christian power in the Islamic world. The Kingdom of Jerusalem, for example, was ruled by a line of Frankish kings who struggled to maintain control over a region that was always contested. Tensions within Christendom. Though the Crusader states were founded to secure Christian presence in the Holy Land, they were fraught with internal divisions, including feuds between rival European factions. This disunity weakened their long-term stability and made them vulnerable to the growing power of Muslim forces. The Muslim response. The rise of Saladin. As the Crusader states settled into their tenuous rule, Muslim leaders sought to reclaim their territories. Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt and Syria, emerged as the most significant leader to challenge the Crusader presence in the Levant. His rise marked the beginning of a new phase in the Crusades. The reconquest of Jerusalem 1187. In 1187, Saladin launched a successful campaign to recapture Jerusalem from the Crusaders. His army defeated the Crusader forces at the Battle of Hattin, leading to the fall of Jerusalem. This victory greatly shocked Christendom and prompted Pope Urban III to call for another crusade to retake the city. Saladin's legacy. Saladin's ability to unite the Muslim forces under his command and his eventual recapture of Jerusalem turned him into a legendary figure in both the Islamic world and medieval Europe. His chivalrous conduct during the retaking of Jerusalem, which spared the lives of many Christian inhabitants, earned him respect even from his enemies. Chapter 7. The Second Crusade, a distant failure. In response to the loss of Jerusalem, the Second Crusade, 1147 to 1149, was launched under the leadership of European kings, including Louis VII of France and Conrad III of Germany. The goal was not only to reclaim Jerusalem but also to strengthen the Crusader states in the Levant. The failed crusade. Division and disarray. Unlike the First Crusade, the Second Crusade failed due to poor coordination and strategic mistakes. The Crusaders faced difficulties coordinating their actions between the European monarchs, leading to delays and inefficiency. The Siege of Damascus. The Crusaders, after suffering a long and arduous journey, attempted to capture Damascus in 1148, but their siege failed miserably. The Crusader forces, weakened by poor supply lines and internal disagreements, were forced to retreat. The failure of the Second Crusade greatly weakened the Christian presence in the East and led to the loss of several key territories in the Levant. The aftermath. The failure of the Second Crusade was a major blow to Christian morale and significantly diminished the authority of the papacy in rallying further crusades. The Crusader states, already vulnerable, began to decline under constant Muslim pressure.